Hey everybody, I want to show you a feature that is in the latest releases of Dremio, and that is the Dremio AI functions. This will allow you to leverage LLMs to work with, to basically do some cool stuff, which I'll show you, but you can also use unstructured data. So essentially, let me just kind of give you a quick description of each of these functions, and I'll show you an example. AI generate will allow you to basically generate structured data based on a prompt. So you'll pass in a prompt and base it off some data. You could also pass in sort of unstructured data like PDFs, images, things like that. This is going to be where the list files function comes in, where you can then list like a folder of images or a folder of PDFs that you have in your object storage to be sort of the thing that you iterate on to generate the structured data. So imagine that I have a bunch of images of forms that are filled out, and I would like to extract those form fields into a struct. I could then basically, like actually I can just click on it so you can see sort of how it works. But essentially what you're doing is, here you see AI generate, you specify the model. We're going to say, hey, we pass in a prompt. So we're going to say, hey, extract recipe details, passing in a file. And then we're saying, hey, this is going to be the schema that you're going to extract. Okay, and basically we describe the schema. It will then basically look at the file and then look for data that kind of fits the schema based on what it finds. Okay, and it's going to then do that by iterating over this list of files. Okay, so that's where the list files function works, because what it does, it just says, hey, take this particular location in my object storage, and then what it does, it generates a list of files that then we can then use for this. Basically, it'll then go through each record in this table that list files returns, and then uses that file location as the thing that it kind of passes to the LLM. Okay, so in this case, what it's saying is like, hey, basically all the tables, all the files that are in this folder that are PDFs. Okay, and then basically what you're doing is basically extracting recipes. So that's the generate, just AI classify, which I'll show you an example of in a moment, where we'll actually run the query, which allows you to, again, pass a prompt and then classify what you pass in as a prompt, or pass in the input into several different categories that you specify. And then there's AI complete, which is more for like generating a description, where you can pass in data. So you might pass in like all the fields of a record to get and then generate like a text description. So you're just basically getting text back. Okay, again, for like generating a description field or a summary field or something like that. Cool, so let's actually see this in action. Okay, so here what I have is an example where we are creating a table with a few different movies, and then there's an array of descriptors of the movie, like describing the movie, but not telling you what genre the movie is. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to use the classify function to say, hey, choose a genre that fits best. So we're basically passing in that array of keywords into a string. That's what we're doing here. So we're just taking that array and turning it to a string. And then we're going to basically say, hey, put it in one of these categories: romance, action, thriller, sci-fi, horror, fantasy. And then that's that. So let's actually run this query. Okay, so essentially what's happening is, like, first we're creating the table. So we're creating this table of movies. And now we're inserting records into that table of movies. And then we're going to then create the view. That is the view of those movies. Perfect. All done. Now I can go back to my Dataset Explorer and go into Dremio. Let's look up our movies deal here. Okay, so again, if I look at the raw table, so this is the actual iceberg table that's been saved into my data lake. Okay, and I query it, I see that, okay, there's the array of verbs, but again, I don't know what genre it is. So the physical genre hasn't been physically saved anywhere. So now if we look at the view that we created, okay, movies, this view here, again, it's a SQL view, so it's going to run the query, which means it'll pass each of those string arrays to the LLM. So this will, again, we're using an LLM, so it'll take a second for it to return the result for each record. But then once this returns me a result, I will be able to see that column with the other stuff. Okay, so we're just going to let that run as it passes the data to the LLM. And if we can see that, hey, for the first movie, Love Across the Galaxy, you got like romance, space, adventure, emotion, so it classified it as sci-fi. In the second, it classified it as a thriller. In the third, it classified it as horror. Okay, and again, it was able to infer this by using the context of what we have the string here. But again, I could also again refer to unstructured data or unstructured like photos, files, PDFs on my data lake using that list files function. So you have this really flexible way where you can again leverage AI for creating useful data practices, and then to again be able to leverage your unstructured data within your structured data. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you all later. Have a great day and enjoy.